In the dead of night, deep within a labyrinth of classified corridors, a single light flickered over a row of machines humming with electricity and secrets. Inside, a subject sat alone, electrodes clinging to their temples, as scientists and military observers watched intently. The experiment was simple in theory, impossible in practice. Could the human mind reach across distance and manipulate reality, uncover hidden truths, or even spy on foreign powers without leaving a trace? Outside these walls, the Cold War raged with tanks, missiles, and nuclear codes, but inside, a war far stranger unfolded, fought not with bombs, but with consciousness itself. Across continents, intelligence officers monitored signals, compiled reports, and debated possibilities. Was this merely psychological trickery, or a genuine frontier of warfare? Every experiment carried consequences, ethical, political, and personal. Careers were built or destroyed on the outcome of a single session. Governments invested millions quietly, funding research with names like Stargate and Grill Flame, programs so secret that their existence was often denied even to Congress. Yet, in hushed whispers and erased records, a network of belief and doubt took shape, shaping strategies that would ripple across the globe. And the stakes were not abstract. If these psychic programs worked, they could redefine power entirely, giving an unseen hand the ability to influence negotiations, detect enemy movements, or control outcomes in ways conventional espionage could not. Could the human mind truly become the ultimate weapon? And if it could, who truly controlled it? The experimenters, the subjects, or the shadowy figures lurking above in the corridors of power? For decades, these questions remained buried, leaving a silent legacy of ambition, fear, and curiosity that still echoes in history. If stories like this fascinate you, subscribe to join us as we uncover hidden global truths. And tell us, where are you watching from? Long before the world knew names like Stargate or Grill Flame, the CIA quietly searched for ways to push human consciousness beyond its perceived limits. In dimly lit laboratories, researchers tested volunteers with techniques that seemed more science fiction than reality: remote viewing, telekinesis, clairvoyance. The equipment was rudimentary by today's standards: clunky EEG machines, spools of tape, flickering monitors, but the stakes were enormous. Every small success or failure could alter the course of intelligence gathering, tipping the scales in a war fought as much in the mind as on the battlefield. Across the Atlantic, in Europe, intelligence analysts followed developments with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Could these experiments offer a shortcut through the fog of espionage? Reports from the CIA arrived coded, fragmented, often contradictory, leaving interpreters to debate whether the program was a breakthrough or a costly fantasy. In Washington, debates raged behind closed doors. Some officials viewed the psychic programs as a potential strategic edge, others dismissed them as dangerously speculative, a distraction from real-world intelligence operations. Yet funding continued quietly year after year, as the Cold War's tension justified experimentation in the shadows. For the subjects themselves, the experience was surreal, even frightening. Isolated in darkened rooms, their thoughts scrutinized by hidden observers, they were asked to envision targets across the globe, to describe military installations, or to predict enemy actions. Many reported vivid visions, others felt only anxiety and fatigue. The data was inconclusive, yet occasionally, what was recorded defied explanation. A single correct description of a distant location, a note that could not have been obtained through conventional means, sent ripples of astonishment through the intelligence community. Small successes fanned the flames of ambition, and secrecy deepened. Even as these programs quietly unfolded, a larger question lingered: if the human mind could truly become a weapon, who would wield it, and at what cost? The shadows of this hidden war were only beginning to stretch across the globe, touching politics, culture, and the fragile assumptions of power that defined the Cold War era. By the late 1970s, the experiments had grown in both scale and ambition. The CIA had established multiple sites, some camouflaged as innocuous research facilities, others hidden deep in remote military bases. Scientists moved between labs, carrying instruments designed to measure brainwaves, subtle physical movements, and even physiological responses that might indicate unseen mental activity. Each session was meticulously documented, yet most of it was classified at the highest level, intentionally invisible to anyone not directly involved. The secrecy was absolute. Even researchers were sometimes unaware of the larger objectives, only that their work mattered in ways that could alter the course of global espionage. Across the globe, intelligence agencies in Moscow and Beijing reportedly began their own experiments in response. Analysts exchanged whispers of unexplained leaks, sudden strategic shifts, and intelligence successes that could not be traced to conventional sources. Governments watched each other cautiously, unsure whether psychic programs were real, exaggerated, or bluffing, but fearful enough to pay attention. The geopolitical implications were immense. If one side could reliably see or influence from afar, the balance of power could shift without a single missile fired. In the shadows, the Cold War had acquired a new battlefield, one of thought, perception, and unseen influence. And yet, for all the secrecy and ambition, the programs were riddled with contradictions. Successes were sporadic, results often unverifiable. Some scientists grew frustrated, warning that the projects risked wasting resources and attention, while others became obsessed, convinced they had glimpsed a frontier beyond conventional warfare. Ethical questions lingered, rarely discussed but always present. Could a mind be weaponized without its owner's consent? Could humanity's most intimate faculty become the ultimate tool of power? As the 1980s approached, the CIA's psychic experiments had already left traces that would resonate for decades, shaping policy, inspiring paranoia, and leaving questions that might never be fully answered. The hunt for the mind's hidden potential was only beginning, and the world would never know exactly how far the shadows extended. As the programs matured, the tension of secrecy grew heavier. Reports filtered upward in coded language, filled with tentative observations, measurements, and predictions. Intelligence officers pored over these files, trying to separate genuine insight from coincidence, skeptics from believers. Every session of remote viewing or psychic testing became a delicate puzzle, a fleeting glimpse of a target, a subtle clue that might alter a military decision, or a hallucination misinterpreted as truth. The consequences were enormous, and the observers knew it. In Washington, analysts debated every report's validity, aware that a single misjudgment could ripple across alliances and strategy. Internationally, whispers of psychic programs reached allied and adversarial nations alike. Moscow intelligence noted anomalies, unexplained leaks, unusual patterns in operational security, sudden knowledge of classified maneuvers. Beijing tracked similar irregularities, fueling speculation that the Americans had discovered a way to see beyond the conventional battlefield. Yet certainty remained elusive. The CIA's work was hidden beneath layers of compartmentalization, and even those in charge rarely knew the full picture. Every success was celebrated quietly, every failure buried deeply, leaving only fragments to guide policy and provoke caution. Meanwhile, the human cost of these programs deepened. Subjects endured long sessions under intense scrutiny, physically restrained or isolated, their minds probed in ways that tested endurance and imagination. Some reported extraordinary visions, others suffered stress, confusion, and fear. The line between human potential and human exploitation blurred. And as these psychic tests unfolded, a question haunted everyone involved. If a single mind could glimpse secret targets, predict actions, or influence events, how could any nation ensure its secrets remained truly safe? By the early 1980s, the stakes escalated. The CIA had begun integrating psychic intelligence into operational planning, cautiously using remote viewing to track military installations, locate hostages, and gather data that conventional spies could not reach. The results were inconsistent but occasionally startlingly accurate, enough to convince key officials that the programs held potential. Across the agency, debates raged. Was this science, luck, or something far stranger? And if it was real, who truly held control over the weaponization of the human mind? International reactions were subtle but pervasive. In Europe, Allied governments quietly monitored the CIA's unusual activities, curious yet skeptical of their value. In the Soviet Union, intelligence officers discussed unexplainable security breaches and unusual patterns in American decision-making. The mere possibility that psychic programs existed created paranoia, leading to defensive measures and counterprojects that remained secret for decades. Each side watched the other, unsure whether it faced a genuine advantage or simply the shadow of obsession. Within the walls of the laboratories, the human toll intensified. Subjects became part of a fragile ecosystem of power and secrecy, their visions feeding strategies that could shift geopolitical outcomes. Scientists oscillated between excitement and ethical doubt, while officers weighed operational benefits against moral questions. Every successful session reinforced belief, every failure bred caution, and every ambiguous result deepened the mystery. The Cold War had evolved into a shadow war of the mind, a hidden battlefield where perception itself had become a weapon. And yet, even as the programs expanded, uncertainty persisted. How far could a single human consciousness influence global events before the consequences spiraled beyond control? When the Cold War ended, much of the psychic program's work remained classified, buried beneath layers of secrecy and redacted reports. The experiments had produced astonishing claims, moments of apparent clairvoyance and remote perception, but the data was inconsistent, often inconclusive. Yet the legacy was undeniable. The CIA had explored a frontier of human potential that few believed possible, leaving traces in policy, military planning, and the collective imagination. Analysts, historians, and former participants would spend decades piecing together what had truly occurred, debating the line between science and speculation, reality and myth. The human dimension lingered longest. Former subjects recalled intense isolation, the pressure of performing under observation, and the eerie sensation of reaching for truths hidden far beyond their immediate surroundings. Scientists reflected on the ethical implications of their work, recognizing that ambition had often outpaced caution. Globally, whispers of these programs fueled cultural fascination, inspiring books, films, and documentaries, leaving the public with glimpses of a hidden Cold War battle fought not with armies, but with minds. And amid these reflections, one truth remained clear: the human mind, in its extraordinary complexity, is capable of both profound insight and profound vulnerability. The psychic programs revealed not only the ambition of governments, but also the resilience and fragility of the people who participated. They reminded the world that power is not always tangible, that influence can reside in subtle perception, and that secrecy itself shapes history as much as open action. Looking back, the story of the CIA's psychic programs is less about technology and more about humanity, our endless curiosity, our desire to control the unknown, and our willingness to push boundaries in pursuit of power. While the experiments were never fully validated, they forced intelligence agencies to confront an unsettling reality. Information alone is not enough. Perception, belief, and imagination can shift outcomes just as profoundly. The global ramifications were subtle but lasting. Governments cautiously integrated lessons from these programs into strategy, not through overt psychic operations, but by acknowledging uncertainty, cultivating anticipation, and preparing for the unexpected. Former allies and adversaries alike absorbed these experiences, wary that the mind itself could become a battlefield. And for the public, the stories that eventually surfaced became a reminder that history is shaped not only by events we see, but by forces operating in shadows, in whispers, in the spaces between fact and possibility. Ultimately, the CIA's decades-long pursuit revealed a quiet, enduring truth. Power is not merely in weapons, money, or armies. It can reside in the human capacity to imagine, to sense, and to anticipate the unseen. And in the echoes of these secret experiments, we glimpse a lesson that lingers far beyond the Cold War. Some of the most profound battles are fought within the mind itself. In the end, the CIA's psychic programs remind us that history is rarely straightforward. Wars are not only fought with guns and missiles, but with curiosity, imagination, and the uncharted potential of the human mind. Even in secrecy, these experiments shaped policy, perception, and the global balance of power in ways few could see. The story also reflects a timeless human tension, the desire to control the unknown, to explore the boundaries of possibility, and the ethical costs that accompany such ambition. The individuals involved, subjects, scientists, and officers, became both participants and witnesses in a hidden struggle that spanned decades. And perhaps the most haunting lesson is this: some of the most powerful forces in the world are invisible, operating not in boardrooms or battlefields, but in the spaces where belief, perception, and human consciousness meet.